Hi, this is Bonnie, and it's a new year, and we're going to try some new things, well, new to me. So, first of all, I'm going to tell you some of the supplies. I am using a jelly print plate that is 3 inches by 5 inches, and you can use your 5 by 7 and do the same technique that I'm going to do. I just wanted a smaller version. And I am also going to be using some fairy hug stamps. I'm going to be using Condo dwellers. I'm going to be using Stardust Magic. I'm going to be using Fern Leaves. I'm going to be using this one. And I'm going to be using Wild Leaves. I'm going to be using the smaller version. At least that's the plan. And then I am going to be using Frilly branches, and I'm going to be using this, the right side. So, and 3 other things, I'm going to be using Fossilized Amber, Scattered Straw, and Speckled Egg. And I have a platform type of a base for my gel plate. And I'm going to be doing stamping, and I'm going to be stamping those instead of putting the paper on top. So we're going to go ahead and get set up. Okay, so the paper that I am using is 8.5 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to start out with using my blending brushes onto the gel plate. And I'm going to start out with my darkest color first, and that's the Fossilized Amber. And you've seen me do this before, actually apply the ink to the plate. And I have a plan, and this is going to be like the grounding space at the bottom, and then I'm going to have a little bit of a highlight. I want to define the actual edge. I want it to have like a rectangle look, so I'm giving it just a little bit of a darker edge there. And then I'm going to take the scattered straw and do the same thing, but come up from there. I'm just going to come up from that spot there where the dark is, and from the top. And then I'm going to use a speckled egg in the center. And I don't want a lot of the speckled egg. I think I already used that one. All right. So this is where the speckled egg is going to go. Okay, so we've got that all set up, and you can pretty much see where that's at on there. And then the next thing I like to do, which I did not pull out but won't take me a second, is I'm going to be using the pigment powder. And one of the pigment powders that I like using is Ancient Copper from Cosmic Shimmer Pixie Powder. So there's some of that already in this one at the end, but I want a fresh one because I think that one's mixed with another color. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip my tray around, and I'm going to add hopefully some more of the pure copper. And I'm just going to put a little bit of water in there. This one does have a mixture of colors in it. You can see the blue in there. So it still has a mixture of colors. So then I take my fan brush, and I am just going to splatter just a little bit. I really like the gold shimmer. It doesn't always show up when I'm filming, but it's really pretty if you can see it when you go to make it yourself and you give it away. You will like that look on your paper. Okay, so then the next step, as always, is I'm going to spray that to get it wet. And I want this to be more of a, I want to say smeared look, so I'm giving a little bit more water. And I'm also going to spray my paper, just give it a little mist. And this time, typically I put it the other way. We can look down and see exactly where we want it to be placed on the paper. I am going to be trimming this away, so I just wanted to get it as best I could on the paper. And you can see right away what it's doing, how it's smearing. And I want that look. You can see that. This is kind of fun to be able to see what it does. And then you just are going to lift that up. And you can see how that took that away a little bit too. All right, so I have the darker end at that side, which is fine. It's how I lifted it. And it's really got a yellow look to it. I want more of a more of a brown look to that, a darker look, and not just yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out some more colors, and we're going to go ahead and add a little bit more color to that, and not as much water. Okay, so I dried that off because if I don't, it's just going to keep blending, and I don't want it to blend. I want it to actually sit on top. So this time I'm going to add the brushed corduroy because it's the right color brown, I believe. It's a little bit darker, and it'll add to this. And I'm going to use Salvaged Patina. It has become my new absolute favorite of the colors. So I'm going to do the same concept of what I showed you to begin with to get this color, but this time I'm going to add, like I said, the brushed corduroy to the bottom. I am not doing like a second because I've got the yellow here already, so I am not going to add another color to the brushed corduroy. Keep forgetting because I don't use brushed corduroy as much, I forget the name, but it's really quite pretty. And this will blend up really nicely with the patina brush corduroy, I think. Okay, so now Salvaged Patina. And I'm going to be putting that in the center here. It is going to cover up some of this, so I'm not going to do too much. But I want enough because I needed a little bit of the blue color. It's too plain right now for me. So I wanted to add that. I am not going to be adding any of the gold this time because the gold shimmer, if you can kind of see that, is already on there. So I'm not needing any more of that right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and spray this and then mist up the paper a little bit. Not much. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing we did before. And I'm going to try to line this up, and it doesn't really matter if it's not perfectly lined up anyway, because I want an organic look. Okay, so you can see kind of like how that looks on there. And I think this time I'm going to go more straight up. I didn't like how it went all the way to the end. And see how that works. That works much better. I can see how I could add just a tad bit more patina to this. But this is like the look I'm going for. And I think I am. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more patina to that. So I'm going to dry that, and I'm going to add a little bit more of the Salvaged Patina, and then we'll be done. Okay, so now we're just going to add the Salvaged Patina to this, and I did not clean it off at all. I just left what was on there, and I'm just going to add a little bit of Salvaged Patina because I want a little bit more blue up there. Okay, and that's going to be that. And again, I'm going to mist this just ever so slightly. Okay, and we're going to line that back up again. And again, like I said, it really doesn't need to be perfect. And you can see there's a little bit more. And like I said, the more you add, the more darker it will get in those areas. But I'm going to be stamping on top of this, so I don't want it to be that dark. Okay. It's a little bit darker. That's what I'm going to use. This is going to be what we're going for. And I'll dry that up and we'll get stamping. Okay, so we're ready for some stamping. And I'm going to be using some different colors today. I'm going to be using pine cone for the fern, the frilly fern, or branches, sorry, frilly branches. And I've already auditioned this one on here with the other stamps I'm using, so it is going to be going in that location. I'm going to double check, make sure this is the one that I wanted to make sure fit alongside. And it does. And make sure I have enough room over on this side. Okay, ready to go. And we're using pine cone. Pine cone tends to look a little bit like black, but it does have a different look to it. So I'm going with that. And it kind of goes well with the brushed corduroy that I've already used. Just trying to make sure that gets soaked in. Okay. Perfect. That looks really pretty. That by itself is very pretty. All right, so the next one I'm going to go ahead and try is this one is the Wild Leaves. And I want this one to go off to the side a little bit. And yet I'm going to match it up a little bit. If you can see, I'm going to match it up a little bit with the bottom of the frilly branches. And for this one, I'm going to be using the Rainforest Green. It's Rainforest, I call it green. So, all right, so that one is all set up. And this is Wild Leaves and Rainforest. I love this color of Rainforest, this color green. I think it's so pretty. Oops, and I don't want that on there. Okay. Now if you want this to be more vibrant, I would probably use a different color green. Probably a lighter green, but I'm going to be able to come back in with my pencil and add a little bit of color too if I want to. I'm going to stamp that one more time. I have not practiced with this card, so this is a first time. So sometimes I add things as I'm going. I have a plan in my mind, and then I change things as they go. All right, I think that looks good. I don't want it to be a very complicated card. I wanted it to be relatively easy, and like I said, I'll add more to it if I need to. All right, so then the next one, stamp, would be the Fern Leaves. And as you can see, this is an open leaf. It is not a solid leaf. I really considered doing this one, but then I would probably have to mask that off. You know what, I might end up, I didn't plan on it, just from looking at it, because I'm afraid you're going to be able to see these leaves behind it. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to use this one. I'm going to have to get the stamp out, and I'm going to mask off this bottom. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to show you the process that I did. I just stamped the fern, yeah, I want to say it right, the Fern Leaves. I just stamped this, and I decided where I wanted it to be masked off and where I wanted it to be stamped. And so I cut it apart. So I'm going to be using this bottom part as the mask. And I have to get this all set up. I just wanted you to see how I was going to do that. So I want to make sure that it doesn't show. So I'm going to leave that like that. I'm setting my stamp in the right position. I am going to use some of my washi tape to keep this piece in place right now. And as that's sitting there, whoops, turned it just a little bit. All right, I'm going to get my stamp on the platform, come back in here and add a little bit more washi tape. Make sure that it's not going to move around. There and there. Now for this color, because I wanted a little bit more color added to this, I'm going to be using, I can never say this, but I'm going to say it's Shanty. I think you can see it. And I'm just going to stamp or ink up the top part of this, pretty much. This is still a little bit open. It's not a solid stamp, but it would work better than the other one. So you can see how I've just pretty much tried to stay with that ink up there. And because I don't use it actually masking paper, I am sure I get that little bit of a bump there that doesn't stamp. But that worked. It's exactly what I wanted. That works. Okay, so that gave me a little bit of color. And then the next thing I want to do is add the sentiment. Okay. And the sentiment is going to go right there. And I must not have pulled my sentiment, so I'm going to go ahead and get that really quick. Okay, so I've got my sentiment, it's ready to go. I am still going to be using the pine cone. I'm going to stay with the same dark color. And I'm going to go ahead and add that. All right, that fits really good around this composition, which is kind of fun. If you audition your stamps, you can compose, make your composition blend better together. So that works really well. And because the sentiment talks about wishing you fairies in your life, we need to have fairies on our card. So I went ahead and pulled, like I said, the condo dwellers. And I think I'm just going to use, and I can use any of these that I want to, obviously, but I think I'm just going to use, I'm going to use her. She's like one of my favorites, I think. I got to make sure there's two different directions they go in, so I'm trying to make sure I get the right one. Yep. And there she is. Okay. I think that'll work. And I'm again just going to use the pine cone. Ink off my plate lid. And we're good. So this is going to be our composition, and now I'm going to cut a little bit of this off so it'll fit on a card, and I'll be right back. Okay, so you can leave it just as it is and you can cut it out like I said, but I decided I'm going to add a little bit of brushos to this, just a tiny bit, and I am using the gray brushos. And I'm just going to do a little bit of sprinkling up here, or you could even use just your splatters, how you do your splatters, but I'm just going to add a tad bit of the brushos, the gray. And it almost looks like pepper when you are putting it on. so you can kind of see it if you have good lighting. If it's at night, it's harder for me to see. But I think we're gonna try that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give that a little spray, and you can see what happens. So that just gives me a little bit of color that way, and then I am going to quickly put my paper towel on top. I want it to dry quickly. So we just have a little bit of smidgen of the, and what I did before I did this too, I heat set my ink. Before I added this, I heat set it. So now this is what we're going to go with. It gives it a little bit more character. I think you can probably see that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this dry and get it cut up. Okay, so I have my card finished, and I actually have it on the card base. I did matte it with a metallic gold paper, and so that's the finished card. I'm hoping that you enjoyed that video, and I will have all of the supplies listed below in the description. Thank you so much for stopping by.